He tossed the car keys at my chest and laughed. "Find your own way home," he said. Then he wrapped his arm around her waist, diamonds catching the light, and walked out of the party as if I didn't exist. I stood there in the middle of a ballroom built on borrowed wealth and borrowed smiles with a dozen eyes, watching the quiet collapse of my dignity. The music kept playing. Laughter continued, but I couldn't hear it, only the echo of the keys clattering to the floor. I bent to pick them up. They were his, not mine. I didn't even have a car anymore. He'd sold mine too, months ago, for better management of our expenses. Outside, rain began to fall, gentle, almost apologetic. I walked home, 6 miles in heels that left small trails of blood on the sidewalk. Each step was a vow. By the time I reached the door, I wasn't crying. I was quiet, still, because I'd finally seen him for what he was. Not cruel, not heartless, just small. A man pretending to be powerful, clinging to the next thing. That made him feel bigger. And I realized something he didn't. Small men always trip over their own lies. I just had to be patient enough to watch it happen. He didn't come home that night or the night after. Instead, his assistant texted, "He'll be staying with a friend. Don't wait up." A friend named Clara, the Aries of a real estate empire. Blonde, rich, empty-eyed. The kind of woman who orders wine by pointing at the highest price. Had spent 8 years building his life, arranging meetings, polishing his reputation, making him look more capable than he ever was. He liked to call me his anchor. I didn't realize he meant it literally. Something to keep him steady until he found a richer shore. The betrayal wasn't just the affair. It was the contempt, the way he tossed the keys, the smirk that said, "You'll never be more than convenient." That was the night I stopped being his anchor and started becoming his mirror. Because if he needed to see himself as powerful, I'd show him what real power looked like, quietly, precisely, and without mercy. But first, I needed to know everything, every number, every signature, every whisper that tied him to the empire he pretended to own. He taught me how to organize his lies. He just never thought I'd use that education against him. We met in college, him with ambition, me with discipline. He had charm like an open flame, bright, dangerous, irresistible. I thought I could hold it. I was the one who stayed late in libraries, edited his papers, drafted his first business proposals. When he said, "You make me better," I thought it was love. I didn't realize he meant, "You make me believable." When his company began to rise, I was already behind the scenes, the silent architect of his success. Contracts under my name, negotiations I handled while he smiled for the cameras. He loved taking credit for my calm. Let him. Back then, I thought partnership meant sacrifice, but sacrifice without acknowledgement is servitude. And I had been serving a man who saw loyalty as weakness. Remembered all the times he dismissed my ideas, saying, "You wouldn't understand how business works." I remembered the night he came home drunk, boasting about how powerful men attract better women. He didn't know it yet, but he'd already handed me the blueprint to his downfall. Every document, every password, every secret I'd once protected. He'd built his empire on my silence. And silence, when used right, is the sharpest blade. It started with his phone, the one he left on the counter the night he finally came home. He was hungover, careless, and smug. I heard the shower running. The screen lit up with a message from Clara. Why did the wire go to her account? I froze. Then I smiled. Opened the banking app, his face scanned. Automatically. A man who trusted his reflection more than his reality. And there it was. multiple transfers from her company to an offshore account under my name. I didn't remember setting that up, but I did remember the day he asked for my ID for a quick document signing. He'd used me as a front laundering money through my identity. If the truth came out, I would be the criminal. Except I had already been backing up his files. Every transaction, every forged signature, every hidden transfer. Thought I was protecting him. Turns out, I was collecting evidence. That night, I copied everything onto a drive and slipped it into a book, The Art of War. Appropriate, really. He'd built his life on deceit. I was just making sure the truth had better timing. In silence, I learned about asset transfers, corporate fraud, legal loopholes. I took online courses at night while he bragged at parties about his instincts. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger is noisy. Preferred precision. I created an anonymous email, sent the evidence to Clara. Small pieces, each carefully chosen to look accidental. A receipt. Here, a document there, enough to seed doubt, but not enough to expose me. Soon, their perfect romance began to rot. I could tell by the way she stopped posting him online, by the tone in his voice when he asked, "Did you say something to her?" I didn't. I didn't have to. Truth once cracked spreads on its own. Then I made my final move. Scheduled a meeting between him, his investors, and a potential partner. The partner was the financial crimes division. When they walked into the conference room, he looked confused, like a child lost in a store. He didn't realize the documents they were holding came from my computer. By the time he understood, it was already over. The next morning, his phone wouldn't stop ringing. Clara was crying. His lawyer stopped answering. He stood frozen at the door, staring at the letter I'd left on the counter. It wasn't long, just one line. "You taught me how to survive. Without you, I simply learned how to make it profitable." Behind him, officers waited with a warrant. The bank accounts under my name were already cleared, transferred legally to a trust I'd built weeks before. I'd been preparing for his collapse long before he threw those keys. He turned to me, mouth open, desperate. "You did this?" I looked at him, the man who once believed he could discard me like an old habit. And for the first time, I felt nothing. "I just cleaned up your mess," I said. Like always, they took him away as the sun rose, gold lights spilling over a man who'd finally run out of shadows. Been 6 months. I sold the house, moved into a small apartment by the sea. Silence lives here differently, softer, earned. Sometimes I still hear the echo of those keys hitting the floor, not as a wound, as a reminder. People think revenge is about rage. It's not. About balance. He taught me that when he laughed and walked away. Now when I lock my own door at night, I smile. Not because he's gone, but because I'm finally free of the version of myself that needed his validation. He wanted me to find my own way home. I did, and I built the road with everything he thought I'd lost.